Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you. So a minister was leaving Christmas Eve services, and he and the staff had a glass of wine afterwards, and he was driving home, wanted to get home pretty quickly, and he was pulled over for speeding. So the officer pulled him over and saw his clerical collar and said, "Reverend, I hate to tell you this, but I think you've been drinking." He said, only water, officer." I don't know why he just caught in that moment. He just stretched the truth a little bit. He wasn't intoxicated, but he said, "I've only had water." And then the officer said, "Well, why do I smell wine, and why is that empty bottle down there on your floorboard?" The minister looked down and he said, "Oh, good Lord, that Jesus, he's done it again." Which has nothing to do with anything that I'm going to talk about today. But I came across that one this week and thought, you should have it, so you're welcome. Today is part 3 of this new Christmas series that I'm offering. It's a new look at the old story, where I'm taking different elements of the story from the Gospels, and we're looking at it from three different perspectives. One is, what would this symbol have meant to the ancient people of the time of Jesus, and what might that inform us? How might that inform us as we work with this story for our own spiritual path today? Secondly, I want to talk about the classic metaphysics of it. That's what our church is really known for. Our tradition is that we look beyond the surface meaning to the universal spiritual principles that are at work and what those things symbolize. And then the third part of these talks I've been trying to do is find, well, how do we use it? How can we apply it, take it up, and really make this a part of our human lives as we seek to live by spiritual means. So the first week we talked about the unexpected news. The virgin birth was the story we looked at. Last week it was the wise men and the gifts they brought. Next week we're talking about the angels. And today we're talking about the guiding star. So as we talk about this, we have to understand that our understanding, I think of a different way to say that our understanding of the cosmos has changed a lot since the time of Jesus. There was no scientific way to measure the distance of anything, and it was a heliocentric view of the universe. You know what that? No, I'm sorry, a geocentric view, meaning that the earth is in the center and all of the heavenly bodies revolved around it. This was the commonly expressed and understood view. And so it was also thought that the sun and the moon were obviously the same size and much smaller than our earth, and the stars were tiny little pinpoints of light that were much smaller than the moon and the sun, right? If you look out there in the world in the night sky, that's what it looks like. Makes sense. Not actually what it is. So it was just that we didn't understand, the people then didn't understand the scale of things. And I don't know if you know this, but the fact that our sun and moon appear to be the same size to the naked eye is purely chance. Just the fact that our moon is of a certain size and a distance, and our sun, it's really, there's no cosmological, it's not like that on other planets where I've been. So, it's different. And we still have a hard time, even with the science that we learned in school and that some of us still trying to keep up with, it's hard to understand, like these numbers. I shared once before, the difference between 1 million and 1 billion. 1 million seconds is 12 days from now. 1 billion seconds is 32 years from now. So we're talking about the scales of magnitude, and the minds of the people and the interactions that they had with the natural world just gave them no way, and we can't even comprehend those distances. So the physical understanding, the facts that the people of that time had were probably not accurate. We know that a star doesn't guide you along our planet and then rest over a stable. That's impossible for a star. Stars are massive. If it were close enough to be near the stable, none of us would be here to talk about it. Science has tried to determine if it was something else that appeared in the night sky that might have done this, maybe a comet, maybe a meteor, maybe a conjunction of planets, and there's no proof that there was anything like this. I'm not saying that it wasn't, but there's just nothing that would say that this happened in that way. So why is it in the story? That's the question we're left with. Why is this image of the star that led the wise men to the stable? Why is it in here? Well, it's not at all uncommon in that time for people to look to the sky, look to the heavens for signs and omens. You see, people were trying to understand the world in which they lived. And so, for instance, if the hunters were setting out and the moon looked a certain way and they had a good hunt, they might take that as an omen. And therefore, we always want to hunt when the moon is in that phase. It may have nothing to do with anything, but as they're seeking to understand the system, the order of their world, these are the ways these things happen. And so when something unusual were to appear in the sky, it must mean something. So when the writer of the Gospel of Matthew is using this story, it's speaking to his audience. They know that if you're talking about some unusual light in the sky, that means something. There's another piece of information I just became aware of this week as I was preparing for today's message, but there's a particular verse in the book of Numbers in the Hebrew Bible that speaks of a star that came from Judah, and that from that star they were able to overthrow the Moabites. And this idea of that one verse is called the star prophecy. And those people from the Jewish tradition who had been oppressed by Babylon, currently by Rome at the time of Jesus, the people who were looking for the hero, they knew about this verse, that a star would rise, and the Savior, the hero, the Messiah, the one to overthrow oppression would come from that. So this was not common knowledge to those who were looking for freedom from oppression, for particularly those in the Jewish world who were tuned to that messianic message. They were looking for a military leader who would overthrow the oppressor. If you want to know more about the Gospel of Matthew, you can listen to last week's talk. It's on YouTube and on our website and on the app. I got to go into a little bit more about who the audience for that was. I say all that just to say this would have had power, using this idea of a guiding star. It's a powerful image for the people of that time. And the fact that it's used as a guide, that's the piece I want to tie into as I now look at the metaphysics and our personal application of it. That there is this thing that shows up in the heavens that guides people where they need to go to do what they need to do. Who could use a little of that? Who could use a little guidance like that where you just, I see you, Sonia. Who just show me what to do. Give me something shining in the heavens and I'll go find it. So, what does Charles Fillmore have to say about it? This is from the Revealing Word. The Star of Bethlehem symbolizes our inner conviction of divine sonship. This inner conviction of our ability to accomplish whatever we undertake calls forth the very best in us and helps us to succeed where others of equal ability to fail. So, the star symbolizes that, yes, you're on the right track. And all that you need is yours to do what is yours to do. That's what the star symbolizes. In the Course in Miracles, A Course in Miracles, it says this: the sign of Christmas is a star, a light in darkness. See it not outside yourself, but shining in the heaven within. And this is what we're talking about. that guiding star, that idea that something will show me where I need to go to make the right decisions so that I can live a life of freedom and fulfillment and service to others. There's something that I want to show me what that is. And like the Course says, it's not at the heaven out there, it's in the heaven within. That we already have that internal GPS, the God positioning system. It's already inside you. So how do we access it? And what is it? In a word, intuition. This is what I'm going to talk to you about today. Intuition. That way of knowing things that your senses didn't give you, that the logical mind doesn't know how you know. Have you ever known that you know and you don't know how you know, but you know? Right? That's it. We all have had that experience of simply, without knowing how, I've missed some steps and I've just leapt to this and I just know. It's intuition. How does it work? Well, in classic psychology, there's an approach that says it may be because of the subconscious mind. Carl Jung might say because of the superconscious mind. You know, before Freud and Jung, psychology really thought that we existed. Our life was in the conscious mind. And I had one of my professors in seminary describe it as like a little 2-bedroom bungalow. And we thought that's where we lived, in the consciousness of that. Freud came along and says, well, that's our conscious mind, but beneath it you have a basement that's 10 times as big as the bungalow. That's the unconscious, the subconscious. And then Jung came along and said, that's all true, but we have an attic that spreads to infinity. The superconscious, the place where we connect to the one intelligence. And in a spiritual perspective, we would say that is absolutely true, not through the earthly mind, but through the mind of God. Ernest Holmes said it this way: we believe in the direct revelation of spirit. And why would we believe that God's going to tell us something directly? Because there is no separation. That the very Spirit of God is my spirit. The very mind of God is my mind. The very heart of God is my heart. I am here living the life of God in a localized, size 42 form. That's what it is. That I'm not separate. From the appearances, it looks like I'm separate from you and from others, but that is not the truth. We are all one. This is our name, unity. That there is one life, one presence. And if we can get quiet enough and listen and feel, all we need to know is already there. The intuitive mind is already active and at work in you right now. So what gets in the way? I'll just share what gets in my way. I'm going way back now, I was a sensitive child. I know you'll find that hard to believe. I had two brothers, I can't count. I was the middle, and I was told that I had the same parents as my brothers, but I had a different experience of growing up being raised by these people. To me, my mother's anger was terrifying. When she would get mad, my sensitivity to that I would just shrink and try and find a place to hide. My brothers said, yeah, Mom would get mad. That was just Mom being Mom, no big deal. That they had a different sensitivity to that. And this kind of translated as I grew up in finding ways to sort of insulate myself, to protect myself from getting, and they knew, my family teased me about being so sensitive. I would bull up was the phrase they used when I would get kind of my feelings hurt, and I would pout, and oh, he's all bulled up over there, look at him. It was true. I was just emotionally sensitive. Very awkward in social situations until I found my way, and then I was the life of the party. But in a new situation, I would be very uncomfortable. And then when I was 19, I began to drink alcohol, and problem solved. Gave me that insulating layer, where I could navigate any social situation with ease and grace and eloquence and elan. I was wonderful. And it worked until it didn't work, which was not a very long period. And I became addicted, and then Many of you have heard my story, or you know similar stories in your own families. Maybe it's your story of what happens in chemical addiction. So fast forward to my late 20s, my first attempt at sobriety. When I was 32, I did achieve sobriety, lasting sobriety. And it was during that period, very soon after I had quit drinking, I lost my insulating layer and I was a wreck. My sensitivity was just like my skin was just itchy, and I just, not literally, but you know what I mean? I couldn't settle. I carried all this anxiety. Here's an example of this. One day, I went to this noon meeting in Dallas every day, and that was the place where I really began to practice these principles and be inspired by other people's experience, strength, and hope. And I was finding my okay people to be with. And there was a little group that we'd go to lunch sometimes after the meeting, and I was really getting the benefit of the fellowship of AA. And then one day I had my morning plan. I was going to go do the things, and then I was going to go to the meeting, and I was going to go to lunch with my friends, and none of my friends were there, and I didn't know what to do. It was just, I didn't know. So I got in my car, and I drove to a restaurant, and it didn't feel right. It's not what I wanted. So I went to another restaurant. I sat in the parking lot. This doesn't feel right. I drove to the grocery store. It just didn't, and I just could not settle. And I must have eaten, because here I am. And I looked back and was like, what is that? This free-floating anxiety that I was carrying. Just this discomfort. I don't believe that I have a diagnosable anxiety disorder, but when people come to me and they share that that's part of their path, I feel like I have some understanding of what that's like, to just feel anxious and ill at ease. So what gets in the way? I couldn't even decide much less go in and figure out what to order on the menu. I couldn't even figure out what door to walk in through. I could not make a decision. What gets in the way of our intuitive thought? It's the mind. It's the mind, the confusion, the concern about what other people are thinking, the overwhelm of what all is happening in my life, and from a spiritual perspective, our false identities and false beliefs and error thinking, all of that clouds our ability to hear the intuitive thought. And so, to find our guiding star, we have to find first a way to quiet the mind, to quiet the chatter. There are actually 3 steps, I think, that we have to take up to really work with the intuitive mind in an active way. First, we have to get quiet. And the second is that we ask. And third is that we listen. There's a passage from the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous I'd like to share with you. Those of you who are familiar with the program will recognize this. This is page 86 and 87. On awakening, let us think about the next 24 hours. Let us consider our plans for the day. Before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking, especially asking that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, or self-seeking motives. Under these conditions, we can employ our mental faculties with assurance, for after all, God gave us brains to use. Our thought life will be placed on a much higher plane when our thinking is cleared of wrong motives. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Here we ask God for inspiration, an intuitive thought or decision. We relax and take it easy. We don't struggle. We relax and take it easy. We do not struggle. And we are often surprised how the right answers come after we have tried this for a while. And what used to be the hunch or the occasional inspiration gradually becomes a working part of the mind. Isn't that beautiful? And whether or not you're experiencing addiction and recovery, we all experience monkey mind. We all experience those egoic thoughts where we're trying to control and manipulate something in the world that is not ours to do. You know, that quote, or the book by Terry Cole Whitaker, I think it is, "What other people think of me is none of my business." It's one of those, you don't need to read the book. You just got it right there, right? The title says it all. But we all have things in our egoic human mind that get in the way of that inspiration, that thought, that leading. I said in the first service, too, that sometimes we don't recognize intuitive because it seems counterintuitive, our intuition. You know, we use the term counterintuitive to mean something that doesn't make sense. But that's often the case with intuition. It doesn't make sense in the logical, linear way. And yet we feel it. I'm going to ask a question. I've been asking this question for a long time, and I asked in the first service, and nobody disagreed. Have you ever regretted following your intuition? Have you ever regretted not following your intuition? There it is. That there is something in us that knows and we can trust it. And it's proven again and again and again in our lives. If we can get quiet, ask, listen, something is already within us that will lead us, guide us. There's a song I heard a couple of years ago. Amy Grant sings it. I don't know who it was that wrote it, but it said, "Take me to the one I need, and take me to the one who needs me." And what a beautiful prayer. Just lead me, God, to where I'm supposed to be. Another kind of indicator of whether or not it's your intuitive mind that's speaking or not. The intuitive mind is completely between you and God. It may have some direction on how you're to interact with others, but it's not about getting anybody else to do anything. That is not intuition. It's fun, though, right? Trying to control other people. I just read something backstage. Lyle had given me this one. He said, before you start trying to control other people, you should try and change other people. You should change yourself, and I think you'll see how hard this process is. You are here to bring the love of God onto the planet anew. Your intuition is always going to be guiding you in that direction. And do you need to be more fulfilled and free? Do you need to have the kind of job that you need to support the life so you don't have to be worrying about money all the time? Yes. Do you need to be living in a healthy body? Do you need to be intuitively guided on how best to care for your body? Yes. Your intuition will get you wherever you need to be so that you can be free to give your gift, because we need it. We need it. Had an experience this week which was quite beautiful. Nancy Harper had an appointment with me on my calendar. I didn't know Nancy before Wednesday, and I just saw her name on my calendar, and I asked my executive assistant, and she said, well, it's 30, and I said, it's only 30 minutes. She said, yes, she just has an idea she wants to share with you. Well, Nancy's only been coming to our community for a few months, and she comes in my office, and she gets right to it. She said, I like this place, I like you, I like what you're doing, you like music, I got this prayer, I think it might need some music. Here's what the prayer is, I'm going to show you how it came to be. She shared with me this process. About 3 years ago, she was deeply troubled at what she was experiencing out in the world and was seeking a spiritual solution, a prayer that would lift her consciousness above all of this mess that might change her so that she might change the world. And as she shared with me every word, why it was so important and powerful, and it's beautiful. And she said, I don't know, but maybe I know you like music, and maybe you could make music of this prayer. Wondrous God, and all the names thereof. Open the hearts and the minds of all people to your wondrous love, gracious love. Wondrous God, wondrous God, and all the names thereof. Open the hearts and the minds of all people to your gracious love. Begin with me. Would you sing it with me? Wondrous God, and all the names thereof. Open the hearts and the minds of all people to your gracious love. Wondrous God, and all the names thereof. Open the hearts and the minds of all people to your gracious love. Begin with me. Begin with me. Begin with me. Begin with me. This is Nancy, everybody. This came through her. Thank you. Beautiful. Thank you. Go God. So a couple things I want to teach you about what happened there. Even before she shared with prayer with me, I said, I just want to honor your courage. That you just came in, you got this intuitive leading that you need to come talk to me about this, and you said yes. Having no attachment to what it was, she said, was willing to say yes to that. You see, what she did not know, about 4 months ago, we had a retreat, the associate ministers and myself at my house, and we're doing a check-in. How are we doing? And this has been a big change in my work life. And there's been a lot coming at me, a lot of things that I'm responsible for that I didn't know how that would feel. It's been a lot. And it's going really well, and I'm settling in. And I heard myself say, it's going well, but I missed my music, and I burst into tears. And so that got my attention. My intuition was trying to tell me something. So I began to just find ways that I could do more music. Even if it's just sitting at my beautiful piano in my living room. And I had scheduled a couple of songwriting sessions with Andy, our keyboard player, and Nancy didn't know that right after our meeting, I had a songwriting session with Andy scheduled. So I went over to the pyramid about 15 minutes before Andy got there. I put my hands on the keys, and I read the words of that beautiful prayer, and that's what came out. So it's important for two reasons. If you're not following your intuition, you may not be giving somebody else the opportunity they need to experience giving their gift. That's important. And the second is that song, that prayer says it. All we have to do is open. It's already in you. This power, this mind, this intelligence, this love, this transformation that is required for you and for this planet is already in you, and it's in us. All we have to do is open heart and mind. That is the guiding star. And that is the way God's love, this beautiful pink candle, is made real. When we open and let it come through us in the way we are with each other, something is happening here. Thank you for being a part of it. God bless you. Thank you for watching this message today. I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.